Cap. This is a New Orleans Police Department and joint press conference with a number of different law enforcement agencies talking about and giving details about the arrest of Antoine Massey. He's one of the 10 inmates who escaped from Orleans Justice Center. If you're just joining us, this happened 6 weeks ago now. 10 inmates escaped, and now Antoine Massey is back in custody. And we learned quite a few new details out of this press conference, many of those coming from both the NOPD and the Louisiana State Police, who've been integral in this investigation. But one of the things that we learned is that they do anticipate making more arrests in this situation.
Yeah,
they do anticipate more helpers getting arrested.
U.S. Marshals made a comment, and this is a comment that we were making off camera as they were listening to this press conference. Yes. The fact that you can't remain on the run for 6 weeks without receiving any sort of assistance. And we know that there were maybe 1 or 2 people that were arrested early on in this investigation, but I believe that there may be more.
Yes. Well, and I think the total number of people arrested for helping the inmates in some form or another was 16. The state police and U.S. Marshals hinted that there would be obviously the debriefing of Antoine Massey and possible further arrests. Now, what we almost can 100% say for certain is that he did get help. You can't stay out for 6 weeks with a $50,000 reward, very visible tattoos on your face, without someone bringing you food, moving you from location to location. We know he's been to at least a couple, right? And when the state police and U.S. Marshals indicates that they are going to go after everybody involved, you can rest assured that's going to happen. Now, whether that leads to a name and an arrest for an accomplice, yet to be seen, but they've done it 16 times. And mind you, we've seen the bail set in those cases at $1 million and higher.
It has been high.
High bills.
We've been talking up here about this Airbnb situation because Amelia Strahan interviewed the owner of the property where Massey was taken into custody a little while ago. That owner was completely shocked that Massey was in the property. It's a duplex that's in the Holly Grove neighborhood on Strollett Street. But state police saying there that they're going to be looking into how Massey wound up in that Airbnb because half of that Airbnb was being rented, according to the property owner, and Antoine Massey may have been in the other side.
Yeah, they also mentioned the fact that moving him around has been happening in the city. So there may be another arrest because the initial social media post, which we would not have even known he was still in the city if he had not posted on social media, claiming his innocence, claiming that he was let out of jail versus escaping from jail and trying to proclaim that he had his charges pending up against him. But if in that video you saw that there was a different residence, he was inside and he gave clear details of the kitchen, which someone obviously could see and they could immediately recognize. When police arrived there, they found his clothing. So he has someone that is taxiing him from place to place and giving him a place to stay. But I wonder how they get, after they do the debrief with him, I wonder how much of that information they're going to get.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, if I own that Airbnb and I have a kitchen decor above the sink that says kitchen in it that looks like that, and I see this video, I'm going to say, wait a second, that's my Airbnb.
Right.
That's my property where this man is. So I assume that people have been piecing those things together as this investigation has unfolded.
Oh, he left a lot of breadcrumbs, honestly.
Yeah.
We talked about the charges a little bit earlier. He's not facing any of the more, I guess, the manslaughter charges, the murder charges, the same charges that Derrick Groves is facing, but he is charged with sexual assault and with domestic violence. So now that he's being taken in and he'll be taken to Angola, where does he stand now?
Well, obviously, those charges never went away. He still has to face them. When he posted that social media video, he proclaimed his innocence to those previous charges. And, interestingly, he seemed to want the opportunity to defend himself, which is hard to do when you're on the run, a wanted fugitive. So those will be continuing. Some of those charges were in St. Tammany Parish. The interesting twist was that one of the people arrested for helping, one of the 16 arrested for helping the inmates, but one arrested for helping Antoine Massey was the former girlfriend of Antoine Massey,
as
described in court documents, who's also the victim in the alleged sexual assault, the charges that he was facing and why he was locked up in the first place.
As we know, those cases are very difficult.
Yes.
Domestic battery situations and domestic assault is an extremely difficult situation for everyone involved. So,
and particularly when you now have authorities making the allegation and arresting the ex-girlfriend and alleged victim.
yes.
And she's, I believe, held on one of those high $1 million plus bails. So she continues to be locked up. So there are a lot of twists and turns to Antoine Massey's case in particular. However, certainly not to make light of the gravity of those domestic violence charges against him, up to and including rape in St. Tammany.
Yes.
That's a domestic violence partner rape. Nevertheless, those carry steep penalties upon conviction, and so he's facing serious consequences. It will now be interesting. He was clearly somewhat talkative by posting on social media. Yes. Seemed to have a story to tell, claiming his innocence, claiming he was let out, it wasn't an escape. Will he be that talkative now that he's being debriefed by law enforcement?
Well, I know right now the law enforcement is probably going to debrief him, and they just mentioned that they're going to do same process. They put them in the helicopter, flying him over to Angola so that he has no chance of escape again. But I am curious to see how these cases play out moving forward for each of them, because some of them face more severe, well, all of them face severe charges, but some of them obviously more deadly than others. So Antoine Massey, he's now there, but Derrick Groves, that's the big question on where he is. And some people have turned in tips. We heard from Darlene Costanza, who says that there were a number of tips, 1,500 tips that had come in. And I was a little confused about this, and I hope that we can get some clarity. We had Sheriff Susan Hudson say that the tip came directly to her. And then there was Darlene Costanza, who says that the tip came to Crime Stoppers. So now the question was over the $50,000. I think that's where the confusion was at the end of the press conference, where people said, well, if that's the case, then where does this money go? Does this anonymous tipper get this money, or did it directly get a call? Did Susan Hudson get a call?
I mean, it also makes you wonder if Susan Hudson sent the tip to Crime Stoppers.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, you know what I mean? So Susan got the tip, sends the tip to Crime Stoppers, and connects the dots. Maybe that's what happened. Or did it come directly to Crime Stoppers? Or did it come directly to Susan? I don't know.
It was indicated to me earlier that whoever made the call was eligible for the reward that was from the U.S. Marshal Service. We don't know the sequence, and maybe the caller was very determined that this get to law enforcement, called Crime Stoppers as well as the sheriff. We don't know. That didn't get fully explained, but hopefully we can get the further details on that.
Around 3:30 this afternoon is when all of this went down. It seems as though law enforcement was in and they were out. And Amelia Strahan is over at that location where Antoine Massey was taken back into custody this afternoon. She's joining us live now with a quick update on what the scene is like there. Amelia?
Yeah, Katie, so we've actually been spending probably the last half hour talking to neighbors, and we just spoke to the next door neighbor, and he said that whenever the cars pulled up, they were unmarked. They looked like normal vehicles. So that may be part of why the scene looked a little, we said it looked dead whenever we got here. There weren't the cop cars, but what we're hearing from multiple neighbors is that is just kind of how the street looked when they got here as well. So it doesn't sound like it was a lot of activity. Now, something new that we've learned from speaking with the people on this street, again, we've mentioned it looks like a pretty quiet street. A lot of people that we've talked to have lived here for a while. They did say that at this property, they have seen cars coming early in the morning, say 2, 3 a.m. for the past few weeks. Now, we heard that from multiple neighbors. Of course, we don't know any details there. We heard from Ann Kirkpatrick. We know that the superintendent, Ann Kirkpatrick, that Antoine Massey did have help. To what extent, we don't know that yet, but they did say that there has been some kind of suspicious activity around this area for the past few weeks. Now, we spoke to the woman who owns this property. Now, she says this is an Airbnb. She says it is a 2-unit Airbnb. One of them was occupied at the time, and she said that she was shocked to find out that this happened at her property. She said that she had no idea. She was completely caught off guard, and she was actually not even home when the arrest was made. The police, she says, did not call her or notify her. She actually got the news from her next door neighbor. And whenever she got back, she said it was pretty quiet. So we're still learning more exactly about, what happened with this arrest today. We're learning more from neighbors as we walk up and down the block, but it definitely appears to be a quiet street. Again, we're on the 9400 block of Strollett Street here in Holly Grove, and we will keep you updated with any more updates that we get from police or from neighbors. But again, this is 6 weeks on the run, and Antoine Massey was captured about 1.5 miles away from Orleans Justice Center. So he did not get far, or he at least did not stay far away. So who helped? What kind of help he got? We've confirmed that he did receive some kind of assistance, and of course we'll look forward to learning more from police about what that looks like. That leaves just Derrick Groves left on the run, the final of the 10 inmates who escaped Orleans Justice Center last month. So we will let you know as we hear more from law enforcement here on the scene.
All right, Amelia, thank you so much for that update for us, and lots of questions still unanswered.